The courtroom froze the second she screamed it. "You have no power over me." Her voice echoed off the walls, bold enough to make even the bailiff hesitate. She stood there trembling, not with fear, but with the wild confidence of someone who truly believed the truth couldn't touch her. Judge Judy didn't blink. She simply leaned forward, her silence louder than the woman's scream. And in the next moments, that woman was about to learn a lesson she never saw coming. A lesson about who really holds the power. But before we jump in, tell me, where are you watching from? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The air shifted the moment he walked in. The echo of her scream had not even finished vibrating through the courtroom walls when her confidence settled back into place like armor. Her chest rose and fell sharply. Every breath a challenge. Judge Judy leaned forward, not blinking, not flinching, just watching. The air felt heavy enough to see. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a thin electric sound that seemed to underline the tension instead of easing it. Even the bailiff, who had seen every type of courtroom chaos imaginable, held still as if movement might fracture whatever fragile truth hovered between them. The defendant, Alyssa, stood planted in the center of the room, her shoulders squared with theatrical defiance. Her voice had been sharp moments earlier, but now the silence spotlighted her trembling hands. She tried to hide them behind a crossed-arm stance, but the tremor betrayed her anyway. Her eyes darted from the spectators to the camera, then back to Judge Judy, searching for an angle where authority might bend. The plaintiff, Mia, held herself differently, quiet, composed, clutching an envelope as if it were the only solid thing in the room. She did not look at Alyssa. She looked at the judge with the kind of steady hope that only forms when someone has been ignored for too long. Judge Judy finally spoke, her voice calm enough to make the earlier scream feel childish by comparison. "Are you finished?" Alyssa's chin rose, sharp and shaky at the same time. "I said what I said." The judge nodded once, slow, deliberate. "Good. Now we can begin." That simple sentence shifted the atmosphere. A low murmur whispered through the audience seating, a collective exhale of tension that had been held too long. Judge Judy's gaze moved to the envelope in Mia's hands. "What is that?" she asked. Mia hesitated, not out of fear, out of the weight of finally being allowed to speak. "It is everything," she said softly. Alyssa scoffed, louder than necessary. "Oh, please. She brought props because she has nothing real. She always does this. Stop." Judge Judy did not raise her voice. She never needed to. The single word sliced right through Alyssa's momentum. "You will speak when I tell you to. Right now, I want to see the envelope." Mia stepped forward. The moment she placed the envelope on the bench, the room stilled again. It was worn at the corners, edges frayed from handling that suggested nights of hesitation, days of courage trying to build itself. Judge Judy slid it toward her with 2 fingertips, turning it so the flap faced her. She did not open it yet. She simply looked at Alyssa, studying every twitch, every forced inhale. "Do you recognize this?" she asked. Alyssa opened her mouth, confidence ready to leap out again. Judge Judy tapped the envelope once. Light, precise, powerful. "Think carefully," she said. "Do you recognize it? Or would you prefer to lie first?" Alyssa's smirk returned before the envelope even fully rested in Judge Judy's hands. It was the kind of smile people wear when they think they are untouchable. But the smile twitched, just once, something only the closest camera caught. The courtroom lights glared down on her, revealing the sheen of confidence she tried to polish into something real. Alyssa tilted her chin and let that smirk widen as though the envelope was nothing more than a prop in someone else's drama. The tremble in her fingers had stopped, replaced by a practiced pose of superiority. Mia, standing off to the side, watched in silence. She held her breath as though breathing might shatter the fragile courage she had carried into this room. Her eyes stayed on Judge Judy, not daring to look at Alyssa, not because she feared her, but because she had learned that eye contact with someone who lives on ego only fuels the fire. Judge Judy opened the envelope with a slow, deliberate motion, the paper peeling back like a curtain revealing a stage no one had rehearsed for. The faint sound of the seal breaking echoed across the benches, creating a ripple of tension that wasn't there a moment ago. Alyssa laughed softly. "Okay, show them." It is probably some printed nonsense she thinks makes her look innocent. Her laugh did not match her eyes. The smirk stayed high, but her gaze flicked down, quick, nervous, toward the documents inside the envelope. It was a micro-expression, barely a second long, but enough to tell the truth. She knew what might be inside. Judge Judy caught the shift instantly. The judge murmured, not looking up. You seem amused. Should I assume you are confident about whatever is in here? Alyssa rolled her shoulders back. Confident? Your Honor, I am bored. The audience exhaled softly, a sound like the courtroom itself reacting to the arrogance. Mia looked at the ground, pain tightening her jaw. She had lived with this belittlement for months, gaslit into doubting her own memory, her own experiences. Judge Judy lifted the first sheet of paper. The room seemed to lean toward her without moving. Let me read something to you, she said, voice level. This appears to be your message to her from 3 months ago. Alyssa's smirk held. Messages can be edited. Only if you did not write them, Judge Judy replied. Alyssa's smile twitched again. The judge continued reading, each line sharper than the last. The words exposed patterns, small manipulations, emotional chokeholds, contradictions Alyssa insisted never happened. The plaintiff's eyes watered, not from weakness, but from finally hearing her reality spoken aloud by someone who could not be bullied. Alyssa interrupted, voice raising half an octave. That is out of context. Is it? Judge Judy asked, lifting her head at last, because Alyssa's smile died the moment Judge Judy turned the next page. And without reading a single word, the judge asked, Shall we talk about why this next message contradicts everything you just said? The moment Judge Judy turned the page, the air changed, colder, heavier, almost aware. Alyssa stopped smirking, her breath hitched, quiet but unmistakable. The courtroom leaned in without meaning to. Paper does not usually make sound, not significant sound, but this page did. It slid against the one before it with a sharp whisper, a sound like truth sharpening its edge. Judge Judy held it steady, eyes moving slowly across the lines, absorbing details no one else could see from where they sat. Alyssa's posture shifted, only slightly, but enough. Her shoulders dropped a fraction, her hands slipped to her sides, and her eyes narrowed at the document as if she could will it back into the envelope. Her lips parted, a breath caught somewhere between denial and dread. Mia watched with both fear and relief. She recognized that page. She knew what it held. For weeks she had debated whether including it would help or break her. Judging by the way Alyssa stared at it now, like a mirror she did not want to face, it was the right choice. Judge Judy inhaled slowly, setting the page down so the courtroom could see the seriousness in her eyes. This, she said quietly, is where your story begins to unravel. Alyssa blinked hard. That is not mine. The judge arched a brow. You have not even seen what I am referring to. I do not need to, Alyssa snapped. Whatever she put in there is manipulated. She has been obsessed with making me look like a monster. Judge Judy tapped the sheet with a single finger. If that is true, then you should have no problem explaining why your signature appears on it. A ripple of reaction passed through the audience, soft whispers, shifting seats, the subtle hum of disbelief. Alyssa froze, her fingers curled into fists at her sides, knuckles whitening. Mia swallowed hard. She remembered the night Alyssa had signed that paper, angry, careless, assuming no one would ever hold her accountable. Alyssa lifted her chin in defiance again, but the confidence was gone from her eyes. Anyone could have signed that. It does not prove anything. Judge Judy did something she had not done yet. She leaned forward, elbows resting lightly on the bench, her voice low enough to slice with precision. Do you know what I find interesting, Ms. Alyssa? The handwriting matches every other document you submitted. The tone matches the messages you claim were fabricated. And most importantly, she lifted the page so the light hit it. The date is the same day you told the plaintiff you never contacted her. Alyssa shook her head too quickly. No, that is wrong. That is, she must have... Stop, Judge Judy said. Look at it. Alyssa hesitated. For the first time since entering the courtroom, she looked afraid. Her eyes flicked over the page, widening with each line she recognized. Her throat tightened visibly. Mia exhaled, shoulders relaxing as she watched the truth finally surface. Judge Judy lowered the paper and fixed Alyssa with a steady, unblinking stare. "Now," she said, voice colder than the silence that followed, "would you like to explain why your signature appears on both sides of this complaint?" Alyssa opened her mouth before the judge even finished the question, too fast, too desperate. "No, that's not my signature," she blurted out, but her voice cracked in the middle of the lie, and everyone heard it. The crack was small, almost delicate, but in a courtroom this quiet, it sounded like glass breaking. Alyssa cleared her throat, trying to recover, tugging her shoulders back into that posture she had relied on for years, the posture that said, "I am in control." But control had begun slipping through her fingers, and the more she tried to grip it, the more obvious its absence became. Judge Judy watched her without blinking, the stillness of a woman who had seen hundreds of people attempt to outrun their own truth. "Ms. Alyssa," she said, voice smooth as cold water, "your reaction tells me more than the paper does." Alyssa snapped her head up. "My reaction? My reaction? She is the one lying." She threw a finger toward Mia, who did not flinch. "She is obsessed with me. She wants to destroy me." Mia lowered her gaze, not out of shame, but exhaustion. She had heard this narrative too many times. But the court had not. And now, as the accusations spilled out of Alyssa's mouth faster than her thoughts could form them, something subtle shifted in the room. Belief began transferring away from her. Judge Judy folded her hands. "You are spiraling," she said plainly. The words hit Alyssa harder than any accusation. Her breath caught. "No, I'm explaining." "No," the judge repeated, slower, sharper. "You are unraveling." A flickering light hummed above them, as though reacting to the tension. Alyssa blinked up at it, then back at the documents, her eyes darting like cornered prey searching for an escape. Judge Judy slid the paper closer to her. "If this is not your signature, then explain the timestamp. Explain why the writing style matches every other form you submitted. Explain why the plaintiff wrote in her statement that you gave her this document personally." Alyssa's throat tightened, her voice shrank. She forged it." Judge Judy's brows lifted. "She forged your handwriting, your phrasing, your habit of putting little circles over your eyes." Alyssa froze. It was a detail she had forgotten belonged only to her. The gallery reacted with a soft ripple of murmurs. The bailiff shifted his stance, subtly preparing for whatever storm might come next. Mia held onto her envelope, watching Alyssa's facade warp in real time. The woman who had once spoken with thunder now grasped for excuses that sounded smaller with every breath. Judge Judy sat back. "This behavior," she said, tapping the paper with measured precision, "is not the behavior of a confident woman. It is the behavior of someone hiding something." Alyssa's lips parted, but no words came out. Not this time. For the first time since entering the courtroom, silence didn't protect her. It exposed her. Judge Judy reached beneath the bench and lifted a second document, sealed and unfamiliar. Her eyes locked onto Alyssa's shaking ones. "This," the judge said, "is something you did not expect to see today." Alyssa recognized the handwriting before Judge Judy even spoke. Her face drained of color so quickly it looked like the courtroom lights had dimmed, because this document did not come from Mia. It came from her own blood. Judge Judy held the sealed document the way a surgeon holds a scalpel, precise, controlled, and with the understanding that what came next would cut deeply. She peeled it open, and the crisp sound of tearing paper broke the thick silence. Alyssa took a single unsteady step back. No, that is private. That is not supposed to be here." "Yet here it is," Judge Judy replied, sliding the first page into the light. The courtroom watched the transformation happen. Alyssa, who just moments ago wielded arrogance like a weapon, now stood bare, her confidence slipping through her fingers like sand. Her jaw clenched, her shoulders stiffened, her breath trembled. Mia's eyes moved from the judge to the defendant, noticing a trembling there she had never seen before. Not anger, not denial, fear. "Let us begin," Judge Judy said. She cleared her throat and read aloud, her voice steady and unhurried. "My sister lies even when the truth would save her." The sentence fell like a gavel strike. A murmur rolled through the gallery, soft gasps, shifting seats, the audible weight of judgment. Alyssa flinched at the words as if they had been hurled instead of spoken. "That is taken out of context," she whispered. Judge Judy lifted her head slowly. "This is a sworn statement from your sister. Are you suggesting she fabricated this as well?" Alyssa swallowed hard, her throat visibly tight. "She is jealous of me. She always has been." The judge flipped to the next page. "She writes here that you have a history of twisting stories to make yourself look like the victim, that you manipulate people you feel threatened by, that you," she paused for emphasis, "create chaos so you never have to face your own mistakes." Alyssa's breathing quickened, chest rising and falling too fast to hide. The courtroom lights reflected off her eyes, revealing the shine of panic. Mia watched her with a conflicted expression, a mixture of vindication and sadness. She had lived under Alyssa's shadow, suffered silently. But seeing her unravel now did not feel like triumph. It felt like truth finally catching up. Judge Judy leaned back, her voice measured and cool. "Your sister also mentions an incident very similar to the one this plaintiff describes." "That is not true," Alyssa snapped, voice cracking. She exaggerates everything. She always tries to make me look bad." "Or," the judge countered, "she is tired of covering for you." The words hit harder than any document could. Alyssa's composure buckled. Her hands gripped the side of the defendant's table, knuckles pale, breath uneven. "This statement," Judge Judy continued, tapping the page lightly, "is not the nail in your case. It is the mirror, and you do not like what you see." Alyssa blinked rapidly, fighting back a flood of emotions threatening to surface. Judge Judy turned to the final paragraph, still unread, still waiting. "There is something your sister wrote that you will not enjoy hearing." She lowered the page, eyes piercing. "Shall I read it aloud?" Judge Judy lifted the page like it weighed more than paper. Alyssa's knuckles whitened around the edge of the defendant's table. Whatever was coming, her body sensed it before her mind did. The courtroom felt colder, as if the HVAC system had quietly shifted to match the temperature of the moment. Alyssa's breathing had grown shallow, spaced unevenly, like her lungs were bracing for impact. The spectators sat forward, caught between morbid curiosity and the gravity of the unfolding truth. Judge Judy glanced at her over the rim of the page. "You understand," she said softly, "that sometimes the hardest truths come from the people who know us best." Alyssa's voice wavered. "She hates me. That statement is just her way of getting back at me." The judge gave a small, almost sympathetic nod. "Let us test that theory." She began reading, her voice clear enough to divide the room. "If you give her any power, she will use it to hurt someone, not because she wants to, but because she cannot help it." Alyssa's eyes widened, her lips parted. She seemed to forget how to breathe. Judge Judy continued, "My sister does not know how to stop once she starts." The courtroom reacted with a subdued gasp, soft but synchronized, like an emotional chord struck by the same force. Mia closed her eyes, a tear threatening to slip but holding itself in place, hanging on her lashes like hesitation. Alyssa shook her head, slow at first, then faster. That is not what she meant. She twists things. She makes me sound dangerous." "She is describing a pattern," Judge Judy replied, "one I am watching play out in real time." The defendant bit her lower lip, a tremble she tried to hide behind anger. "You do not know her. She exaggerates everything. She wants attention. She wants to hurt me." "Yet," Judge Judy said calmly, "she wrote this before the plaintiff ever filed her complaint." Alyssa's shoulders slumped. It was subtle but unmistakable, the visible collapse of someone who had been leaning against a wall of lies for so long she forgot it could crumble. Judge Judy lowered the page. "There is one line left." Alyssa's eyes darted to it, then back to the judge, pleading silently, "Please, Your Honor, do not read that." But the judge did not look away. She read the line as if delivering a verdict. "One day, she will hurt the wrong person, and she will not be able to talk her way out of it." The room fell silent, too silent, like even the air held its breath. Mia finally let the tear fall. It hit the table with a soft tap, louder than Alyssa's next inhale. Alyssa whispered, "She did not mean that. She did not." Judge Judy didn't raise her voice, didn't break the stillness. She simply held the page between two fingers, letting its weight point toward Alyssa like truth made physical. Then she nodded to the bailiff. "Bring in the next piece of evidence," she said. "And this time, Ms. Alyssa, I want you to listen." The bailiff set the small gray recorder on the bench with a soft click that felt louder than any scream. Alyssa's posture collapsed inward, as though the device were a weapon aimed directly at her. Judge Judy barely touched it, yet even that gentle tap made the room hold its breath. The recorder sat in the center of the courtroom like a truth waiting to detonate. A simple object, small, unassuming, almost forgettable. But Alyssa stared at it the way someone stares at a snake coiled beneath their chair, poised, dangerous, familiar in ways she did not want to admit. Judge Judy folded her hands. "Ms. Alyssa," she said, voice calm enough to frost glass, "the court has received this audio file. It was recorded the night you claimed you had no interaction with the plaintiff." Alyssa stiffened. "She set me up. She recorded me without telling me. That," the judge replied, "is legal in this state, and more importantly, the content matters more than your discomfort." Mia looked down, fingers twisting around each other. The audio had not been intentional. It was captured when her phone slid under the seat during one of Alyssa's confrontations. She had debated for days whether to hand it over. But fear has a way of recording itself, this time, literally. The judge pressed the play button. A crackle of static filled the room. Then Alyssa's voice, clear, sharp, unmistakably hers, came through the speaker. "You think anyone will believe you? You are nothing without me telling people what you are." A gasp fluttered across the gallery like a wave. Mia's shoulders tightened. She had heard those words more times than she could count. But hearing them now, in the open, stripped of secrecy, it was different. It was liberation. Alyssa took a step forward. That is edited. She spliced. Judge Judy paused the audio with a single finger. "You are not in a position to accuse anyone of manipulation while your own voice does the manipulating." Alyssa's jaw quivered. "It is taken out of context." The judge tilted her head. "Would you like to provide context? Because so far every piece of evidence deepens the pattern your sister described." The defendant inhaled sharply, but no sound followed. Silence wrapped around her like a thin sheet of ice. Judge Judy nodded at the bailiff. "Continue," the audio resumed. "Try anything," Alyssa's recorded voice hissed, "and I will ruin you before you say a word." This time, the courtroom did not gasp. It grew heavier, darker, an atmosphere thick with realization. Even the cameras felt as though they zoomed in by instinct, catching the way Alyssa's face lost every trace of defiance. Mia covered her mouth with her hand, remembering that night vividly. The fear, the shaking, the desperate attempt to stay composed. Hearing it now, exposed and undeniable, made her eyes sting. Alyssa whispered, "That's not fair. That's not who I am." Judge Judy leaned forward, expression unchanging. "Your voice disagrees." She reached toward the recorder again. "And we are not done," she said, "because the next clip is even worse." Alyssa's breath vanished as the judge pressed play. The second clip began without warning. Alyssa flinched so hard the microphone on the defendant's table caught the shaky breath she tried to hide. For the first time all day, she looked small. The static cleared, and the tone of the recording shifted. This one was louder, closer, raw enough that the room seemed to shrink around the sound. "I do not care what she tells you," Alyssa's recorded voice snarled. "I decide how this ends." The courtroom stiffened. The power in her voice, the version of her on the recording, was nothing like the woman standing here now, trembling under fluorescent lights. Judge Judy's face did not change, but her silence became a scalpel, slicing away at the remnants of Alyssa's facade. Alyssa shook her head, voice cracking. "That is not me. I swear I did not." "Ms. Alyssa," Judge Judy said, "we have heard your voice enough today to recognize it." Mia watched the judge, her breathing steadier than before. Each revelation made her posture rise, not in pride, but in reclaimed humanity. The weight she carried into the courtroom seemed to lighten just slightly. The audio continued. "People like her break so easily," the recorded Alyssa said with a chilling calmness. "One push, and she will beg to drop everything." Mia's eyes closed at those words. They were the same ones that haunted her nights, the ones that made her question her worth, her sanity, her strength. But today, under the bright truth of the courtroom lights, those words felt different. They no longer held power, they exposed it. The recorder clicked off. A silence followed, thick, judgmental, almost holy. Alyssa's voice quivered. She made me angry. People say things when they are upset. That does not mean anything. Judge Judy tilted her head. You said you had no contact with her that night, yet here you are, speaking to her, threatening her, claiming dominance over her life. Alyssa's eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape, a crack in reason, a place to hide. There was none. You do not understand, she whispered. She provokes me. She always has. She wants me to snap. Mia finally looked at her, not with anger, something far softer, the expression someone wears when they have already let go of the battle in their heart. You hurt me, Mia said quietly. You hurt me because you could. Those 6 words hit Alyssa harder than the recording. Judge Judy leaned forward. You said something very interesting on that audio. You said you decide how this ends. Alyssa swallowed, throat tight. The judge continued. That's no longer true, because what you did after those threats is what concerns this court most. Alyssa's heartbeat was visible in her throat now, pulsing like it wanted to escape her body. What do you mean, after? Judge Judy didn't answer. She simply turned toward the bailiff. Bring the monitor, she said, and pull up the video file. Alyssa's knees nearly buckled, because she knew exactly which video was coming next. The video froze on the first frame, Alyssa's face, laughing into the camera as if the world existed for her amusement. The courtroom didn't breathe, and the defendant's last thread of confidence snapped without a sound. The bailiff clicked play, and the video began with a shaky handheld angle, someone recording casually, unaware of its future power. The lighting was dim, the background blurry, but Alyssa's voice cut through the distortion with terrifying clarity. I can spin anything. Judges eat out of my hand if I want them to. A collective gasp rippled across the room. Even the court reporter paused mid-keystroke. Alyssa shook her head violently. That was a joke, just a joke. People say stupid things when they are drinking. Judge Judy didn't look at her. Her gaze remained on the monitor, unflinching. The calmness in her posture created more tension than any raised voice ever could. The video continued. Alyssa leaned closer to the camera, drunk on her own arrogance, not alcohol. Mia cries at anything. I could ruin her in 10 minutes if I wanted. Mia stiffened. The words weren't new to her. What was new was hearing them in a room finally willing to acknowledge the truth. Alyssa's hands fluttered like frantic birds. I did not mean that. I was venting. That night was awful. Your Honor, I swear, Judge Judy held up a single finger. The room fell silent instantly. On screen, the Alyssa from that night kept talking, confident, vicious, completely unguarded. She thinks she can win by being innocent. People like her always fold. All I need is one lie that sounds better than her truth. A soft, horrified murmur spread across the spectators. Even those who had tried to stay neutral now looked at Alyssa with changed eyes. The video ended on her crooked grin, a smile that, when frozen in time, looked more cruel than playful. When the screen flickered back to black, the silence that followed was suffocating. Alyssa whispered, That's not who I am. Judge Judy finally turned toward her. That's exactly who you were the night you said those words. The question is whether you still are. Alyssa's throat bobbed, tears threatening to form but never falling. She wasn't crying out of remorse. She was crying because the room no longer belonged to her. Mia lifted her chin. The shift in her posture was subtle but powerful. She no longer appeared small. Truth had given her height. Judge Judy looked back to the defendant. This video was recorded months before this hearing, before the messages, before the envelope, before the audio. This is not a reaction. This is a pattern. Alyssa's voice cracked. Please, let me explain. Judge Judy folded her arms. Oh, you will, she said, because what you said next, off camera, matters even more. Alyssa's breath hitched. There was more. Alyssa's lips trembled before any sound came out. The courtroom waited, not kindly, not cruelly, just waited for the truth she could no longer outrun. And for the first time since the hearing began, her voice sounded human. The lights above flickered, casting brief shadows across Alyssa's face that made her look smaller, younger, almost fragile. Her hands clung to the edge of the table as though the wood was the only thing keeping her upright. Judge Judy remained silent, giving her space, or perhaps giving her rope. Alyssa inhaled shakily. That night, I was angry. She pushed me. She made me feel like I wasn't enough, She stopped, voice cracking. I said things I should not have said, but I did not mean them. The judge's expression didn't change. Words spoken in anger still reveal character. Alyssa winced, as if the sentence itself left a bruise. Mia watched her, eyes steady, no longer hiding behind hesitation. Alyssa noticed, and it shook her further. "You do not understand," she pleaded. "People leave me all the time. I was scared of losing control. I wanted to feel like I had something." "Control over another person is not something," Judge Judy answered. "It is a choice, one you made more than once." Alyssa swallowed a sob. "I felt invisible my whole life. And when someone finally listened to me, I didn't know how to handle it. I panicked. I lashed out. I hurt people. I know that." Mia's brows softened, just slightly, a flicker of compassion, uninvited but genuine. The judge leaned forward. "Your sister's statement says this wasn't an isolated moment, that you do not stop until you've caused harm." Alyssa's shoulders crumpled. "I know what she wrote, and she's not wrong. I do not know how to stop once I am angry. I feel it take over and She pressed a hand to her chest as though steadying a rapid heartbeat. "I become someone else." "No," Judge Judy said calmly. "You become who you really are without consequences." The words hit her like a physical blow. Alyssa's face twisted, grief, shame, denial, all colliding at once. Her mascara smudged beneath her lower lash line, giving her the appearance of someone unraveling slowly, thread by thread. Mia finally spoke, softly but with unshakable clarity. "You were not invisible. You just wanted me smaller." Alyssa's breath hitched hard. She looked at Mia with a mixture of regret and desperation. "I never wanted to destroy you. I just didn't want to feel destroyed myself." Judge Judy lifted an eyebrow. "And yet the evidence shows the opposite." Alyssa's knees buckled and she gripped the table again, grounding herself. Silence stretched, heavy enough to shape itself around every person in the room. Judge Judy tapped a single document lying face down beside her. "Your explanation is noted," she said softly. "But you forgot one thing." She flipped the page. "Your own handwritten note tells the real story." Alyssa stared at the document Judge Judy held as though it were a loaded weapon. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Fear had finally stolen her voice. The courtroom sensed it. This wasn't just another page. This was the page she never meant for anyone to see. Judge Judy turned the paper face up, her eyes scanning lines written in blue ink, messy, uneven handwriting that told a story all its own. The kind of handwriting that comes from shaking hands, or from someone who didn't plan to share the words with the world. "Ms. Alyssa," the judge said quietly, "do you recognize this?" Alyssa swallowed, shoulders collapsing forward. It was personal. I never meant—" "Personal is not the same as irrelevant," Judge Judy replied, "especially when it contradicts everything you've claimed today." Mia watched Alyssa carefully, confusion touching the edges of her expression. She had seen many sides of this woman, rage, arrogance, control, but never this. Genuine fear, vulnerability, cracks spreading through her exterior like fractures in glass. Alyssa wrung her hands. It was just a moment of weakness. That note wasn't supposed to mean anything. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow. People often tell the truth in moments of weakness. The courtroom quieted. Even the fluorescent hum seemed to dim, surrendering to the gravity of the moment. Alyssa inhaled shakily. "I wrote that because I didn't know what to do. Everything was falling apart. I felt guilty, but I didn't want to admit it. I didn't even think anyone would see it." "So you did write it," Judge Judy said. Alyssa closed her eyes. A silent admission. Judge Judy tapped the edge of the paper. "This note directly addresses the plaintiff, and yet you have insisted you never reached out to her after the incident." Alia's eyes snapped open, wide, startled. No, wait, that's not, it is your handwriting, the judge pressed. Your phrasing, your idioms, your emotional rhythm. She held the paper up. And your apology. The word apology hit Alyssa harder than any accusation. Mia's breath caught, her eyes darting between the judge and the defendant. She apologized. To me? Alyssa shook her head feverishly. It wasn't real. I didn't send it. It was just something I scribbled down when I was upset. But you wrote it, Judge Judy repeated, which means somewhere inside you, the truth existed, even if you tried to bury it. Alyssa's knees weakened. She gripped the table again, knuckles white. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want her to hate me, Mia whispered. I didn't hate you. I feared you. Alyssa flinched. Judge Judy leaned back, studying her with a gaze that seemed to peel away the last layers of denial. You claim you never contacted her, but this note proves otherwise. Alyssa shook her head. No, please, no, that's not what happened. Judge Judy paused, eyes narrowing, not with anger, but realization. A puzzle piece had shifted. An inconsistency revealed itself. A truth that Alyssa had never intended to expose now sat glaring on the page. The judge lowered the paper, voice steady and sharp. There is something in this note, she said, that changes everything. And Alyssa's face drained of color because she knew exactly what line the judge had found. Judge Judy held the note with the care one gives to fragile truth, steady hands, sharp eyes. Alyssa trembled, rooted to the floor as if the carpet itself refused to let her run. Everyone in the room sensed it. This wasn't evidence anymore. It was confession. The judge began reading, not dramatically, but with a clarity that made every word unmistakable. Her voice wrapped around the sentences like a spotlight, revealing parts of Alyssa she never meant anyone to see. I never wanted to admit I went too far. I knew she was scared. I knew I caused it. Alyssa squeezed her eyes shut, a tear finally breaking free and tracking a line down her cheek. The crack in her voice was audible when she whispered, Please, Your Honor, stop. But Judge Judy didn't stop. She wasn't cruel, just unwavering. I told myself it wasn't my fault, that she made me do it, but the truth is, I crossed a line I cannot uncross. A collective inhale rippled through the room. Some spectators exchanged glances. Others looked down, absorbing the weight of a moment rarely witnessed so openly. The instant a liar hears her own truth spoken aloud. Alyssa's knees bent slightly, as though she might collapse. I didn't mean for anyone to read that. It was private. I was spiraling. I wasn't thinking. Mia's eyes softened, not with forgiveness, but with something equally powerful. Validation. The fear she held inside for so long, the emotional bruising, the nights she questioned her own reality, finally had words, and they came from the person who inflicted it. Judge Judy rested the note on the bench and folded her hands. This is not a message written out of manipulation. It is written out of guilt. Alyssa wiped her cheek, shaking her head. I wasn't going to send it. I didn't want to hurt her more. Yet you already had, Judge Judy replied. This note proves that at least once you recognized the harm you caused, and still, you walked in here today and denied every piece of it. Alyssa's breath broke into uneven pieces. I was afraid, she whispered. If I admitted it, then what does that make me? Mia answered before anyone else could. Human. But you chose to be cruel. Alyssa looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since the hearing began. The facade was gone. The armor, the smirk, the sharp confidence, all dissolved into raw, trembling truth. I didn't want you to hate me, Alyssa whispered. Mia shook her head gently. I wanted you to stop hurting me. That's all. Judge Judy leaned forward, her tone measured and firm. This note is your mirror, Ms. Alyssa, and mirrors don't lie. Alyssa broke, not loudly, not theatrically. Her shoulders shook in small, uneven tremors, the kind that come from realizing the person you fear most is yourself. Judge Judy closed the note with deliberate calm. Now, she said, we can finally discuss accountability. Alyssa looked up, with no defenses left to hide behind. Alyssa tried to speak, but the words stuck, thick, heavy, unwilling to leave her mouth. Moments ago, her voice filled the courtroom like a storm. Now, it barely rose above a whisper. Her fingers curled around the edge of the defendant's table, gripping it as though the polished wood were the only solid ground she had left. Her breaths came unevenly, shallow and shaky, as if each inhale had to fight past something lodged deep in her chest. Judge Judy allowed the silence to stretch. Not to punish her, silence was simply the only language left that Alyssa hadn't twisted. And in that silence, the courtroom saw a woman unraveling, not by external force, but by the weight of her own truth. Alyssa finally managed, I don't recognize myself in any of this. Mia looked at her, eyes soft with exhaustion rather than anger. I recognized you, she said gently. That's why it hurt so much. Alyssa winced, as if the words were a physical blow. Her once steady posture slumped, shoulders sinking under the gravity of guilt she had held off for too long. Her voice, when it returned, trembled like a leaf in a wind she couldn't control. I didn't want to be this person, she whispered. I thought if I stayed loud, no one would notice how scared I was underneath. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow. Fear does not excuse cruelty. Alyssa nodded quickly, too quickly, like a child confessing to something she had hidden for years. I know. And I kept doubling down because I was afraid of being the villain. I didn't want to admit I hurt her. Mia's throat tightened, but she spoke clearly. You didn't just hurt me. You shaped my life around your moods. I was always tiptoeing, always shrinking, just to avoid setting you off. The spectators seemed to hold their breath. No outrage now, only a sober understanding of the emotional terrain stretching between them. Alyssa's tears came silently, sliding down her face without resistance. Her hands shook as she wiped them, leaving faint mascara trails across her cheeks. She didn't bother to fix them. Vanity had no place here anymore. I'm sorry, she whispered. Not the performative apology she once wielded like a shield. This one came out cracked, uneven, raw. Mia's chin trembled. She wasn't sure if forgiveness was possible, but acknowledgement, that was something. Judge Judy leaned forward. An apology means little if it arrives only when the walls crumble, but it means something if it's followed by accountability. Alyssa nodded, a hollow sound escaping her chest. I'll accept whatever you decide. I wish I'd listened sooner. I wish I hadn't made her afraid of me. Mia's eyes glistened. I wasn't afraid of who you were. I was afraid of what you enjoyed becoming. Alyssa broke again, quietly, but completely. Judge Judy folded her hands, voice lowering into something almost solemn. It's time to confront the full weight of what you've done. Alyssa lifted her tear-streaked face, because she knew the hardest part was still ahead. For the first time all day, the courtroom felt still, not tense, not buzzing, just still, like a deep exhale after a storm. Alyssa's head hung low, her once bright voice reduced to trembling fragments. Judge Judy watched her with a gaze that held neither pity nor anger, only truth. Alyssa wiped the last streak of mascara from her cheeks, leaving faint gray shadows beneath her eyes. They made her look older, tired, hollowed out by the truth she fought so desperately to outrun. Her shoulders curled inward, each breath a struggle against the grief of seeing herself clearly for the first time. Judge Judy leaned forward, folding her hands. What you're feeling now, she said softly, is the weight of truth. It settles slowly, and then all at once. Alyssa nodded weakly. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I didn't mean to become someone people fear. But you did, the judge replied, and your intentions matter far less than your impact. The words fell gently, but they landed heavily, like stones dropped into still water. Alyssa's tears welled again, but she didn't wipe them. She stared at the table, her own reflection warped in the polished surface, as if she didn't recognize the person looking back. Mia shifted slightly, clasping her hands in her lap. I didn't want revenge, she said quietly. I wanted you to stop hurting me. I just wanted to breathe again, without wondering when the next blow would come. Alyssa's breath hitched. I thought, if I kept control, I wouldn't lose everything. Control, Judge Judy said firmly, is not something you take by force. It's something you earn through respect, humility, and responsibility. What you took was power, and you used it carelessly. The courtroom felt heavier with every word, not oppressive, honest, the kind of heaviness that only comes when facade and truth meet at last and collide with unavoidable clarity. Alyssa stared at Mia with eyes full of remorse that finally looked real. I hurt you, and I convinced myself I didn't. She shook her head slowly. I don't know how I became that person. You became her, Judge Judy said, one small choice at a time. That line cracked whatever remained of Alyssa's internal defenses. Her shoulders shivered as she swallowed a sob she couldn't contain. Judge Judy's voice softened just slightly. This moment is your reckoning. Every lie, every threat, every false confidence you clung to brought you here. And now you stand with a choice you cannot dodge. Alyssa lifted her gaze, red-eyed, exhausted, stripped bare. She whispered, What choice? The judge's eyes hardened with finality. The choice to accept responsibility, or continue pretending you don't recognize the woman in that note, that video, and those recordings. Alyssa's breath trembled. I do recognize her. Mia looked away, tears slipping free. The acknowledgement hit harder than any denial. Judge Judy lifted her gavel slowly, the wood catching the courtroom light like a warning. It's time, she said, voice steady and unshakable. Here is what justice requires. And Alyssa braced herself because there was no shield left to hide behind. Before you hear the verdict, ask yourself, can someone truly change, or do they simply run out of places to hide? The gavel hovered in Judge Judy's hand, motionless but mighty. Alyssa stood trembling, stripped of every defense she once sharpened like a blade. And Mia waited, not for revenge, but for the truth to be spoken aloud by someone who could not be silenced. Judge Judy lowered the gavel, but she didn't strike it yet. Instead, she looked directly at Alyssa, examining her as though she were a puzzle whose last piece had finally fallen into place. Ms. Alyssa, she said, voice calm but resonant, this court has listened to your words, your sister's words, your recorded threats, and your private confession. All of it paints one clear picture. Alyssa swallowed, nodding weakly, tears collecting but no longer falling. You acted out of fear, the judge continued, but you controlled others to protect the image you created for yourself. An image that crumbled the moment true accountability knocked at your door. The courtroom remained silent, not tense, not electric, but reverent, as though witnessing the final chord of a long, aching symphony. Mia exhaled softly, hands clasped together. Her chest rose with a sense of release she hadn't felt in months. Judge Judy turned toward her. Ms. Mia, this court acknowledges the emotional harm you endured, the fear, the manipulation, the long nights of self-doubt. No one deserves to feel small in someone else's shadow. Mia bowed her head, her eyes shimmering in gratitude. Then the judge faced Alyssa again. You will provide restitution to the plaintiff for the damages caused by your behavior. Monetary, emotional, and practical where applicable. Alyssa nodded. Yes, Your Honor. You will also write a formal acknowledgement, truthful, concise, of the harm you caused. This acknowledgement will be submitted to the court and to Ms. Mia. Alyssa's voice cracked, but she agreed. I will. Judge Judy's tone softened just slightly. A controlled mercy. This is not to shame you. It is to ensure you face yourself honestly. That is the only way you'll avoid repeating this cycle. Alyssa broke into quiet sobs, not explosive, not desperate, just the sobs of someone finally seeing the wreckage she caused and realizing she stood at its center. Mia watched with gentle sorrow, not triumph. I didn't want you destroyed, she whispered. I wanted you to stop destroying me. Alyssa nodded, tears falling freely. I know, and I'm sorry. Judge Judy finally lifted the gavel. Its wooden surface caught the courtroom lights, glowing with the weight of justice, not vengeance, but clarity. This matter is settled. The sound echoed like a final heartbeat. Alyssa stood still, breathing carefully, as if the wrong movement might shatter her again. Mia felt something inside her unclench, slowly, like a knot finally loosening. Judge Judy watched them both with a rare softness. Power, she said, does not come from control. It comes from truth and the courage to face it.